I'm very fortunate because I was able to see them present at our conference in October at Agentic and GovAI. And I knew that I wanted to have them here because as one of the largest energy companies in the world, we love to hear about real transformations, real deployments, real plans that are actually happening. And what we've just witnessed is that. And one of the things that, so you made a clear distinction in that presentation that Constellation's view of digital isn't just technical.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest. We even have had conversations like, should we be sitting in IT or should we be sitting in some other place, right? Because you kind of come with the overhead, hey, I'm in IT. It is not about the technology. Technology is absolutely important, and it enables things that we couldn't necessarily do before that we can do now. Absent, though, all of the process work, all of the roll up your sleeves with the people who are at all different levels and reimagine a process, right? Answer those crazy questions about what would need to be true. Don't just add technology on top of something today. That initial part, that engagement in a completely different way between the business and technology is the magic of transformation. That is the magic of digital. We can all go and stand up AI, Gen AI, any kind of technology against something, and we can make it better. But this is, again, this fundamental reimagination where the payout, again, whether it's process improvement or it's value or it's reduction of cost, is exponentially larger. And so technology is a big part of it, but this is not a technology implementation.
I love that. And as an energy company, you're in a regulated industry, right? So how does that make you think differently about how quickly you can deploy AI or how you deploy AI or what tools that you choose out there? How does that change anything for you all?
Yeah, I just think it makes you get a little more creative on how you think about solving some of those problems. Like, for example, in our nuclear space, a lot of export control data that can't leave the U.S. U.S. citizens have to have access to it. And there's fines associated with leakage of ECI data that's significant some. So it's a very conservative culture that we have here. So as we think about those types of problems, you have to think about how do you solve them. In our case, we actually went down the path of working with a party like Microsoft to figure out how to use a commercial cloud, not use the more expensive gov cloud in a way that made that possible. I'm going to argue that the value and the size of the thing that we're going after allows us and affords us a little bit more latitude to get creative on the technical solutions. It gives us a little bit more emphasis to go up a couple levels and have the right discussions with legal and compliance to look at what does the statute actually say, what are you actually allowed to do and able to do, versus what are you trying to achieve. And I think we've seen that across both sales and nuclear, more in nuclear as we've gone. It has not slowed us down at all. In fact, I think that the bigger story as we think about it when we talk to people externally is that if we can do it in the nuclear space, anybody can do it. I mean, one of the most regulated spaces in the world, and rightfully so. If we can transform, anybody can transform.
Okay, so you had some impressive figures in there that you've saved up to $7 million on the sales enablement for Constellation. What was the big, what led to that kind of ROI so quickly?
Yeah, I will say in terms of our go-get, it is hundreds and hundreds of millions, right? So 7 million is really great because it was so fast, and it just tells you okay, we're headed in the right direction, but by no means are we up, dancing and singing with that number, right? Because we want to go a lot further than that. What it does for us, though, is, it reinforces every single decision that we make is driven by value. So we are literally saying, if we go and move forward with this story, how much value can we extract from it? And we're making decisions around that. So we're releasing, obviously, iteratively, every 2 weeks, and we are incredibly focused on how do we create that value. I will say that initial number was in a handful of months, and that was with 9 sellers. Our seller base is obviously substantially larger than that, so it's a small amount of products, a small amount of offerings for a small number of salespeople. And we know that if we continue, or as we continue to expand that and continue to expand the commodities and the different things that we're able to offer in that space, that number will go way faster and way higher.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a little bit of education. So you mentioned your sellers. Yep. So you've got people out there in the energy space that sell energy, right? Mm-hmm. They work with Fortune 100 companies. So you've got a number of distributors, if you will, that are selling energy. And you've given them tools to make them more efficient. That's kind of what I'm understanding?
Yeah, so the way we think about it is kind of three different things. So we have an ability now to say, how do we provide the next best opportunity, right? So in our current world, before we did any of this, a salesperson would come in, everyone's different, we all have systems and tools, and people choose to use their own systems and tools, right? And they would come in, and each person might do things differently. I work off of Excel, I work off of Outlook, I've got this list of people. We have brought 15 external data sources in to help infuse and inform where we should be looking to sell. So now we're giving all new opportunities on top of the ones that they already had to these sellers. If you're in sales and somebody's giving you a lot more to go sell, I mean, that's golden, right? Then we're helping folks understand what do they need to do with that. So it's one thing to have a lead, but was there a sustainability report released by company ABC? So today is a good reason to call and say, hey, I saw your sustainability, and this is a great time to look at XYZ kind of product, right? So we're providing them with insights and information that they didn't have before. So that's kind of part of the puzzle. I don't know if you want to add anything else there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also important to understand that today, our sellers sell kind of single things, right? Power sells power, gas sells gas. We have a number of teams that sell solutions and services. Ideally, we'd like to sell kind of everything at the same time, right? You can imagine when you go to buy, internet and you go to buy phone or cable TV, you don't want to talk to three people. You want to talk to one person, or maybe you don't want to talk to anybody at all, but you want it to sell you all the bits and you want a bundled price. So one of the things that we think about when we fuse the data together is how do we enable a seller to take advantage of an opportunity across those lenses? In the solution space in particular, where it's a growth area for us, that I think is critical. So that opportunity of saying who wants to buy from us and really, where and when is important. As we step further into what we call our next best action, what are the steps to actually sell those things? Especially when you think about different commodities and different solutions have different steps. How do you make it, uniform for the seller? It has the seller not have to know every single bespoke process that exists to close a deal that includes multiple products. We're building those solutions now. We're not quite there yet from rolling them all the way out, but that's our aspiration. As we go further and we think about, okay, well, now that the funnel's bigger and now that we're moving product faster, we got to bring some of the operations processes along too. Doesn't matter if you can't close the deal, right? If the deal isn't closed, you don't make money. So we're also looking at how do we use agentic technology to automate those steps, or in many cases, just remove those steps outright because they just don't need to be there, or they can be done by a machine. So those three lenses together, I think, are really going to get us a significant value. What I find amazing, though, that $7 million number was just from, say, 9 sellers on just next best opportunity, even before we've gotten to the point of automation or expanding out the seller base, which we're now doing now. And that was with our proof of concept phase.
So what were some of the things that you are not going to automate, or decided that you wouldn't need to automate? So maybe some things that were nice to have, but you really didn't need to automate them. Or does anything stand out in this first kind of iteration that you've gone through with AI automation?
I don't necessarily know that there's been specific things we've said we're never going to automate.
Right.
There's a number of things that maybe we have said aren't worth automating today.
Right.
Either they're because they're too complex, or we don't have the data, or it's too bespoke. I'll give you an example. In our solution space, these processes are a little bit newer, products are a little bit newer. We didn't jump right into automating those things. Instead, we took a step back and said, well, maybe we need to understand what those processes should actually be. How do we take some of those solutions through the funnel? Now that we've identified them, we've got people who want to buy them, use that opportunity to figure out what that process should be, leverage the technology so you don't necessarily have to ever automate it. It's just automated to start. That's how we've been thinking about it. That's not to say that we're never going to get back through to some of these things that are a little bit smaller. But I think, as Shaina said before, everything we do has to be outcome and value based. If the value isn't there to do the work, it's going to go to the back of the line, or it's going to fall off. Because there's always another thing to do, and there's never enough staff, and there's never enough time. So that's our perspective, at least from a philosophy perspective there.
Okay, so along those lines, you talked about this 28-week e-week cycle, right, for deployments. Are you seeing resistance internally? Because a lot of people have talked about AI. This is really it's a cultural shift, right, for a lot of people. And are you facing those, and how have those been resolved internally?
Yeah. So I'll offer a little bit of background. When we started in the nuclear space, we thought we wanted to go into online work management, but it's a difference between telling a group of people and having a group of people come to that, thought process. So we got together a large swath of people from all different parts of the company, right, all different parts of nuclear in a whole bunch of different roles, and we looked across, I think, 12 different domains, and we assessed them at a high level and said, where does it make the most sense to land? And collectively, we agreed on online work management. The reason for this is it touches so many people in the plant. It could change so many people's lives, but it's not so close to the actual reactor itself, right? We're still a little bit a ways. But we can begin to help that organization learn to understand what does it mean to change. We went and visited plants. We sat side by side with people who were, manually doing things. There's not a single person who we talked to who was like, "Oh my God, I love the process. Please don't change it." Right? Everybody said, "Change it." Now, we all know it's very easy to say that when you're standing next to somebody. It's also different when it gets in their hands, and the question is, how much are they going to want to adopt it?
Right.
So the way that we've structured the nuclear kind of rollout and whatnot is the actual build for us will take place over 6 quarters, right? Very quick, very iterative. We'll be building the products that we've already done a bunch of process work, obviously. We'll then have a lighthouse site where we'll roll it out and we'll kind of test it with them. We'll learn from them. We'll get insights from them. And then we'll begin to kind of roll it out across the fleet in a measured way. One of the largest parts of our rollout for this is the change management, is the fact that we recognize that we can't just say, hey, 12 plants, you all have to switch to this tomorrow, have fun, right? That we recognize that there will be a substantial amount of change management. And of course, the value will fully be achieved when we say we are getting rid of the old process, right? If we have 2 processes, that's not gonna work either. So we have done, from the head of nuclear, from the CEO, all the way down to the Sally Smith who is hitting the keys. We've had conversations and built that alignment.
You mentioned this term, agentic AI pro code framework. I think it's pretty cool. I love the term agentic because we run agentic conferences. And we talk a little bit about that. That is sort of this human and AI sort of relationship. Talk a little bit more about agentic AI pro code framework.
Yeah, so a couple things. I think first off, when we started this, there really wasn't an off-the-shelf solution to go build complex agents. There's a lot of low-code solutions out there, things like Copilot Studio or Agentforce in Salesforce or other tool sets, Appian, there's a number of them, but they can't build complex autonomous AI agents to the level that we need with the right observability that a company like ours requires. So we took a step back, and I think we had a vendor on the ground helping us launch, and they really helped us look at, how do we build a framework that allows us to develop agentic solutions at a time when nobody is doing it yet. And that eventually evolved into what is our agentic AI framework today, which I really argue is just a conglomeration of different services and technologies stitched together with a development operating model that we use. It's based on things like Python packages that can be deployed within things like Visual Studio. It becomes a tool set that our developers can use. We can use atomic agents to iterate off of. We can add the guardrails we need. We put solutions in place like observability, telemetry, ground truth testing, red teaming, all these technical terms. But the point is that we did it internally. We didn't want to be vendor locked. We didn't want to be relying on a single vendor because we don't believe that most of the big tech vendors are going after the types of things that we're building today. In fact, if again, we talked earlier on, most companies are still working through a lot of iterative, smaller scale AI development solutions. And that's where the big tech companies are focused, and that's where they should be focused, right? Mm-hmm. That's where the market is. We believe we're a little bit further ahead, so we went a little more internal with that. That all said, we took that same framework and that same guardrails in our development practices and operating model, and we built a policy. That policy governs how we develop, when we develop, how do we release our solutions, how do we do it safely and efficiently. We worked with legal, we worked with compliance. We've certified these things both in a regulated space for ECI data, which for our nuclear, and also for things like PII for commercial. But again, the trick here for us was understanding that there was no silver bullet. There wasn't a vendor solution to just take and adopt here. Maybe someday we get there, right? And someday the solution becomes available and you just buy it. We're not there yet. I think that's a critical advantage for us. It allows us to continue to iterate as technology continues to move. It doesn't keep us stuck. And most importantly, as we've gone through that journey, it's trained up real people here that have real expertise in building agentic solutions at a company like ours, which historically, wouldn't have been able to build those types of things internally.
So when I was just kind of picturing, I just take it for granted when I see all these power lines, right? We drive out to the mountain every week, and my kids are on a ski team. And on this one particular highway, 81, I mean, there's so many trucks. It's this huge highway for commerce. But now I'm realizing, as I'm looking at those power lines, there's also a bunch of power going across those lines that could have been generated in a multitude of different power plants. It's using that highway, if you will, to go to someplace. It's going to end up going to a company or out to residential streets. You probably see the market that way. Like you see power lines, you think of them much differently than the typical, consumer. But now I'm realizing, like, oh wow, that's kind of just like a highway. Do I have that analogy correct?
So I think it's slightly a little more nuanced than that.
Thank you. Please enlighten us.
But I will tell you though, like, that yes, the transport is definitely there. Power physically moving goes from place to place. There's things like independent system operators and ISOs and coordinators that make sure that the power is delivered where it needs to go. We don't black out the grid, right?
Right.
Our job at Constellation really is to do two main things, right? Generate the power that's eventually going to go across those lines, and then also find ways to economically provide that power or other solutions or gas to end users at a price that makes sense for them. Even better if we can do it to help with their carbon story or reduce carbon on top of that. That's really where we fit into the bits. Now, our business interacts with those utilities. We work with them to understand what's been consumed so we can build things. Our wholesale trading function works with the ISO coordinators to ensure that things are scheduled properly and dispatched properly. But that's how we think about it. Now, we think about it in conjunction to AI. I mean, look, again, capacity is capacity. We are capacity, right? So the more we can generate, the more we can provide, the more we can lock in for those who need it, the better off I think we're going to be here as we continue to need more and more power in this country.
So I'm glad I had it close, because my next question was going to be, there's a big part of this that is balance, that is actually AI smartly being able to route energy.
Yeah.
Whereas before it's like we'll just send what we can, right?
Yeah.
Or guess as best we can. But is that part of the business that you're also looking to automate?
I think Constellation, like most energy companies, will continue to look at where can we reduce demand by using things like demand response. I know our CEO has made comments a couple of times that that is a key component to helping to solve for energy scarcity over the next decade. How do you optimize what already exists? You don't need to move the power over the distribution lines to do it. Maybe you just smooth out the curve by turning things off or turning things on that are more local to the location. Like, let's use a simple example. If a factory has the ability to turn aspects of that factory off in real time, or better yet, turn on generation that's already located at that facility, well, that reduces less demand on the distribution grid, which then reduces less demand on the transmission grid, which then reduces capacity needs kind of holistically. And if you think about, energy in general, right? Like we're constantly looking at capacity based on peak. Well, it's not usually peak. It's only when it's really super hot or super cold that you hit peak power. A lot of times that capacity isn't needed. So the question is, how do you use things like a demand response or flexibility to help smooth that out? I think in the U.S., it's just now getting to the point where that's something that makes more sense economically. But yeah, I think all energy companies, Constellation included, will continue to look at how we think about that.
Yeah, and I think your question, as it relates to like, what is the next domain that we tackle, right? Is it that what you talked about, or is it something else? I think that is, as time goes on, we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
I will say the excitement and the passion around the work and the outcomes that we've achieved says that we have more people today coming to us saying, hey, can you come to my area and work on XYZ than we have capacity to do, right? So we've got to prioritize and figure out where the largest value is across the company and then somewhat methodically navigate through it because, again, this started as a bit of a let's see what could happen, and now we're seeing tremendous value. So it's really about how do we smartly figure out where we go next.
Your point about AI, though, I think is important. Now, the ability to optimize some of those things is going to require real algorithms, going to require new technology that maybe isn't quite here yet or is just still being adopted to do it more at scale. So yeah, I do think that there's opportunity there, and I think as we continue to look, we'll see it's more transformation or just applying technology, but I do think it's something that'll be interesting over the next few years.
Very cool. So tell us, what are you doing with AI that is transferable to other industries, and what may be kind of what you feel like is really kind of energy specific?
I mean, I would venture to say everything we're doing is transferable, right? I mean, we happen to be energy, we've been in the energy industry for a long time, so that's obviously where we're spending our time and our focus, but the domain could be anything. The aspirational statement could be anywhere. The process can be applied anywhere. And there is tremendous opportunity across every industry and every company. So I think it's really about people making a choice that they want to be all in, right? From a human capital, from a people, from a actual dollars, and then leaning into that space and redefining it, reimagining it, and then putting the right technology to it. But absolutely could go anywhere.
I love it. Love that that's all transferable. So we got down to our last minute here. We're sitting at CES 2027 in the AI House next year. What's a home run for you for Constellation as it relates to your transformation efforts in artificial intelligence?
Gosh, I would say we can't wait to come back and tell you not just 7 million, right? Hundreds.
And maybe
of
a
millions.
B in there,
yes,
right.
Hundreds of millions that we have been able to bring to bear from the sales side, right? So this is increased revenue. I think for us, it is also being incredibly far along in our nuclear online work management, whereby it is the new process. And I would even go so far as to say, maybe this is a little aggressive, but nonetheless, that it becomes the new nuclear standard, right? So in nuclear, we share everything across the board. We are doing this for Constellation, but with a very, very clear eye to the industry. So as we're able to change from the standard process to something new, we are incredibly hopeful that other people also want to navigate their fleet to the new. So that would be amazing if it wasn't a Constellation win, but if it was a nuclear industry win.
Love it. Steve?
Yeah, I'd like to say it's also looking at what that next domain actually is for us and going not just from the 2 that we have active, but leveraging that framework and going even further. I mean, you mentioned things like demand response and flexibility. Some of the components and things that need to be reimagined to make things like that work for us, whether that's that or something else within our organization. I'd like to see us be able to come back and say, you know what? We got 2 or 3 more of these things that are in the blueprinting phase. And look, we went from blueprinting all the way to execution. We got the value, and we just kept going. And now this is an enduring function at our company that never ends.
Well, I've learned a ton. Let's give it up for Steve Adams and Shaina Green. Thank you so much. Constellation Energy. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for being a part of the AI House. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.